Hello and welcome. I've received a few questions about the steering setup on this vehicle, and I will show it in this video. This is the first one I've built. I call it version 1. I also have version 2 here that also have some improvements in the steering, and I will show those also. I recently crashed this version 2 and broke one of the skis. I'm also doing some other fixes on it. I have a leaking tank and so on. But let's get started. Okay, so let's start with the suspension. This suspension I found it on eBay. It's probably from some children's motorbike or some small dirt bike. I think this is called an upside down fork, I'm not sure, but it provides suspension, and the ski is connected with a bolt through this lower part, and the ski can rotate around that bolt. And this upper tube, I have a milled plastic bushing, and there is a bolt up here, meaning that the whole tube can rotate inside this frame. I didn't know if it was okay to rotate this lower part around this upper tube, so I made the whole thing rotatable. The lower part of the suspension is connected to this steering arm, and when moving the steering arm, the ski will follow. This is a piece of ready-made plastic clamp. I had to put rubber to avoid slipping. Actually, slipping is not always a bad thing. If there is a lot of force put on the skis, it's better that something is slipping instead of breaking. But in this case it was constantly slipping, so I had to adjust the skis every now and then, and it was annoying. And with this rubber, it's stiff, it doesn't move. It is difficult to show with this camera the angles because the perspective is so weird, but when the skis are parallel, pointing forward, these left and right steering arms should be pointing inwards. They should be pointing towards the rear wheel, and that creates the Ackermann steering geometry. It's easy to set up. Just have the arms pointing towards the rear wheel, and it is close to correct Ackermann geometry. Ackermann geometry means that when making a sharp turn, the inner ski will make a harder turn compared to the outer ski, because the inner ski has a shorter turning radius compared to the outer ski. Looking at the skis from above, you can see that they are now parallel, they are pointing forward. But now when making a turn to this direction, in this case the right ski is turning sharper than the left ski, because it's the inner ski. Same thing towards the other side. Now the left ski is turning more. And this is exactly what we achieve with Ackermann geometry, just by pointing the steering arms towards the rear wheel. And if we don't have Ackermann geometry and instead have, for example, parallel position throughout the steering, there would be some kind of fighting or wobbling for the skis. The two steering arms connect to the center steering arm with these rods. This is just a piece of, I think it's M8 threaded rod. I put a piece of plastic tube over it, and then these ball end bearings at each connection point. These pieces here are stoppers so that the steering doesn't oversteer and lock up the steering, or even oversteer so much that the skis would be pointing sideways or even backwards, and that would be terrible when being out driving. And this center steering arm is connected to a tube going up to the handlebar, and I have some milled plastic bushing and washer, and then a clamp holding it in place, and same thing down here, bushing and a clamp to keep it in place. I also made the handlebar removable. There is just 2 bolts here and the handlebar can be taken off. And yeah, that's about it for version 1. Yeah, well, the thing with this shock absorber, it turns out that this lower part of the shock absorber can be used as bearing in this system. There is no need to be able to rotate this tube. So in version 2 I have the upper part of the suspension clamped down directly into the frame because it works fine. In this version 2 I have made a bit nicer clamps holding this bottom part. This is from a tube. I have turned it to correct diameter and made the same type of clamps as up here. Steering arm, same steering rods, and no need to change the parts that were okay. The stopper I have simplified, made a bit more discreet. So this one is moving along with the steering arm, and this piece will stop it from moving too far. Maybe hard to see there. But the rest is pretty much the same. I have a milled bushing here, much smaller, and at the top same milled bushing and a clamp and one bolt to unscrew the handlebar. Yeah, and in version 2 I got some bigger shock absorber, bigger diameter, better quality, and it works really well, I must say. I think the oil in version 1 shock absorbers is bad. It doesn't work in cold weather. They become quite stiff, but not in these new ones. It provides really nice suspension. Yep, thanks for watching.